We live in an age where everyone's trying to be more conscientious. As a homeowner, you try to recycle, perhaps only use the couple of dozen rooms that really need heating. You use a helicopter more sparingly. But what about your car? Obviously you need something to trickle around the estate in, check on the landmarks, the wildlife, the outbuildings perhaps. But you're trying to be more self-aware, project the right image, so a Rolls-Royce or Bentley just it's not really cutting it. You need something more simple, something like, I don't know, just a Range Rover autobiography, barely £100,000. But then a big petrol engine won't really cut it, and diesel, you've heard bad things. Well, now Land Rover thinks it has the answer. It has a new Range Rover plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, or PHEV for short, or possibly PHEV. Nobody's quite sure yet.
The Range Rover P400e plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, to give it its full title, puts out 398 brake horsepower and 471 pounds-foot of torque, thanks to a 114 brake horsepower electric motor and a 296 brake horsepower 4-cylinder petrol engine. That makes it more powerful than the turbo V6 petrol and both the V6 and V8 diesel options. 0 to 60 miles an hour is dispatched in 6.4 seconds, and flat out it will do 137 miles an hour. Figures that are a smidgen better than its almost identically priced SD V8 stablemate. With a theoretical electric-only range of 31 miles, it means you can go all the way from the front gate in Oxfordshire to the back gate somewhere in Middlesex. Checking obviously on the peasants that they're not revolting. Pheasants, not peasants. In all seriousness though, if you live out in the countryside, then obviously you could drive into London where you might be working, and at that point you can duck out of the congestion charge for a start. There are also two main modes. There's EV mode, fairly obviously, and then there's parallel hybrid mode. Within the parallel hybrid mode there are two further options. There's save, which means it'll store up all that battery energy until you actually need it in the city when you get into London, for example. And there's also predictive energy optimization, PEO, which will work with the sat-nav to work out where it's best to use the various energy sources, so petrol and electric, during your journey that you have planned ahead of you. Clever stuff. All this leads to a CO2 figure of just 64 grams per kilometre and a combined cycle fuel economy figure, for what that's worth, of 101 mpg. The vehicle excise duty will also set you back just £15 in its first year, compared to £1,200 for the SD V8. Charging of the 13.1 kWh battery, by the way, is accomplished via a port in the front grille, and takes 2 hours 45 minutes from a 32 amp wall box and 7.5 hours from a normal plug.
So what's it like to drive? Well, it is obviously very quiet, which is exactly what you want from a Range Rover. Of course, a car that's 5 metres long and 2.5 tonnes, well, handling is never going to be its forte, and you really can feel the weight in this. Much better to sit back, cruise, relax.
The 2.5 tonne curb weight is almost identical to the V8 diesel, but owing to the weight of the batteries in the boot, the towing capacity of the PHEV is only 2.5 instead of 3.5 tonnes, so you might need to buy a smaller horse or something.
The other thing that obviously people might think is difficult to get your head around is the fact that you've got a 4-cylinder turbocharged engine under the bonnet, actually mounted longitudinally, not horizontally as you expect in a hot hatch. The sound from it, to be honest, most of the time you just don't notice it's there, and at high speeds it could be anything, to be honest. The only time you notice it is away from the lights. So here we are, coming to a stop at some lights, albeit imaginary, and then you set off. And it sounds a little bit like you're racing a hot hatch away from the lights, as though it's somewhere distant, but close by. The way that the petrol motor actually kicks in and augments the electric power is pretty seamless as well. It's also worth mentioning the brakes, because obviously when there's regeneration going on, it can be, well, a little bit tricky, but I have to say I really haven't noticed any inconsistency in the pedal feel at all, which is good to know. Inside, this is now the new 2018 spec Range Rover, and very lovely it is too. These seats are actually slightly wider because they've moved the controls up to the door, a la Mercedes, and they're also slightly comfier, I think, even than before. The other big change in here is the infotainment. Land Rover describes it as, and I quote, a digital butler fit for the 21st century. Curiously, all this was actually codenamed Blade.
One more clever little gimmick is that the sunblind for the roof can be opened or closed with a simple wave of the hand. Possibly a little awkward if you're the Queen on official duty, but otherwise quite fun. I have to say, I think actually a bit like Bentley, Land Rover's always lagged behind on that sort of premium feel for its interiors, and this really does feel like a big step on. These new screens are very lovely to look at. The essential information and graphics etc. contained within them aren't any different really, but again they've been incrementally improved over time, so now it does feel like pretty much a good enough match for anything else out there, and in terms of looks, spot on. Things are arguably even more sumptuous should you choose to sit in the back of the car, where you have up to 17 plug sockets, which is more than some small Pacific islands, I believe. It's also more sumptuous back here. These seats are now wider and bigger, and they will actually recline by up to 40 degrees, which helps you make use of the extra 186 millimeters of legroom. Plus there is this nice calf rest and a footrest as well, both of course heated, along with the armrest. All in all, it's simply delightful. Oh, did I mention the massage seats? Up to 25 different massage functions thanks to something called hot stone technology in the backrests. I'm not a spa sort of person, but it's quite nice. Of course, this cream leather and luxury is all well and good, but does a hybrid Range Rover still perform when the going gets grubby? Well, yes. Better, in fact, because according to Land Rover, the PHEV's electric motor offers greater control of torque from a standstill, improving low-speed control. The low-range transmission can also be operated in pure EV mode, for stealthy stalking of poachers. To be honest, our off-road test route on the launch was slightly disappointingly tame, or at least it was until this happened. Now, I was always taught that water and electricity don't mix. So how will the Range Rover PHEV get on with crossing this lake? Here we go. Wading always seems just very surreal. It's like I'm in a boat. Now, in order to wade, wading depth is up to 900 millimeters, you do actually have to have the engine running, because otherwise it will draw in the water through the exhaust. But even so. And there we are, at the other side. Water and electricity, no problem apparently. After a day in the grounds of Blenheim Palace and on the roads of Oxfordshire, I thought the Range Rover PHEV made rather a lot of sense. It retains that stately air and has ample performance. In fact, I think a fully EV Range Rover could make even more sense. There's no requirement to have a great sounding Range Rover. If anything, you probably want to slip quietly about the countryside like a library on wheels, sitting serenely above all the hustle and bustle in this little, right, not so little, oasis of calm. I should point out that my legs are actually too long to make any use of these heated calf rests anyway. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this. If you'd like to watch some other films, then please click on the links up here, and please don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and click on that little bell icon so you get all the notifications. Thank you very much for watching.